The Federal Reserve Bank was established in 1913, nearly a half-century before monetary theory was developed. The Fed's early history has some interesting twists. The Fed's origins trace to the bank panic of 1907, which threatened to collapse the banking system and take the economy down with it. Today, when we hear the word bankrupt, we think of an individual or firm going bankrupt. But the word originated in the times when it was banks that went bankrupt. Bankrupt literally means broken bank. To make money, banks take in deposits and then loan them out. If a bank held on to all the money deposited with it, it couldn't make a profit. But the fact that banks loan out most of their assets means that at any given time, they have less money on hand than they owe their depositors. If people panic and think their money is no longer safe in their bank, they will rush to take it out. Soon, the bank will have given out all the cash it had on hand. Other depositors will be out of luck. The bank will have gone bankrupt. That's what was happening in 1907, and as one bank after another closed, the panic was spreading. At this point, J.P. Morgan, a top financier of his time, called together a group of his rich friends and convinced them to put money into a pool from which banks could borrow if they started running short on cash. Morgan's plan worked. The panic subsided, but J.P. Morgan's solution lingered in policymakers' minds. Why not create a permanent government bank from which bankers could borrow? J.P. Morgan became the strongest advocate for creating the Federal Reserve. Other leading bankers of the era opposed the idea, including John Jacob Astor, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isa Strauss. Astor, the world's wealthiest man, was the leading critic. Their feud with Morgan became grist for conspiracy theorists after the Titanic sank on its maiden voyage in 1912. Astor, Guggenheim, and Strauss all went down with the ship. Morgan had been booked on the Titanic, but canceled his trip at the last minute. Interestingly, Morgan was an owner of the ship and had insured it against loss. Adding to the conspiracy stew was the fact a decade before the Titanic sank, a novelist had written a book that described almost exactly the conditions that doomed the Titanic, hitting an iceberg and killing most of those on board because there weren't enough lifeboats. When the book's author was then poisoned to death, the claim that Morgan had a hand in the sinking of the Titanic grew. Now, like all conspiracy theories, this one is way short on facts and way long on imagination, but it's fascinating nonetheless. Go online and you'll find bizarre accounts of how the Federal Reserve was made possible by the sinking of the Titanic.